Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Nature Echoes on this Sunday, 26th of February, 2023. And I don't have an opening video, but thank you for joining me. And this is our weekly time of echoing news, stories, poetry, and art connected to nature folklore, the holy wells, and our precious water, woodlands, wildlife. So hail, holy good health to you all. And through this edition, you'll see from signal from the background, we're going to go through our concerns for hedging, and there's going to be some willow folk and weaving, and some folklore mythology behind fish on Fridays. And this Nature Echoes Live, plus the growing nature folklore video, articles and photos library that is free of all adverts, are all brought to you due to the kind support of our wonderful subscribers. And I'm currently inviting subscribing to the Nature Folklore through Substack there. There's the address there. And I've got two tiers there that I host. One is free. The other is for supporting subscribers. And I hasten to add that I still be continuing my video library build up on Patreon to serve our precious Patreon subscribers too. Now, Nature Folklore subscribers on Patreon, they get the complimentary paid subscription on both the Patreon and this Substack. So it's a kind of 2-for-1 deal. Anyway, that's the link to subscribe to Nature Folklore, and where you can choose free or be a sponsoring subscriber. And the sponsoring subscribers is what actually keeps this show afloat. And if you book an annual subscription, there's a deep discount. I think it's 40%. And you get support from me if you wish to join the Substack as a writer as well. So thank you for your support. This is why I'm still here and still broadcasting. And now with that show survival pledge over, let's see which lovely early birds are with us today. No one. Oh, I think we've got a signal problem. Let me try and test this out. This is something we haven't had for a while. I'm just going to do a bit of a test here to see why we're getting low on speed. This is unusual. Give me a moment on this. Goodness me. Now, what's happened? Right at the start. And we don't want this to happen, not today, because I'll tell you why shortly. No, I think we're back on the ball. Thanks very much. Thank you very much. I did a speed test there quickly. And really, you can tell I'm a bit out of breath because I just ran to get yours just in time for the show. And the funny reason is that I had another sweater on and I spilled a load of gunge down it. So I had to quickly change sweater and hope that the yellow one would work. And it seems to work okay. Anyway, let's get on with the show. At this time of year, people in Ireland who've got a passion for wildlife, biodiversity, and they love foraging. I think let's get the photos going. This is the sort of horrible thing that's going on. Photos, please. There's some aggressive hedge cutting that's going on, and it happens here in Ireland every February, especially at the end of this month. You get this sort of thing going on. There we go. Look at how that gets ripped on the hedges. This is what we actually see. That gives some examples. And the hedgerow laws here in the Republic of Ireland, they're enforced by the National Parks and Wildlife Service, which is a division of the Department of Housing, Local Government and Heritage. And they are actually reminding the public that the cutting, grubbing, burning and other destruction of vegetation that's growing at any hedge, also around the ditches as well, should stop. There should be no activity whatsoever between the 1st of March and the 31st of August. It's prohibited by law here. But of course, most farmers leave this task to the last moment, which is the end of February. And I wish this would change because I notice birds are starting to pair up. They start pairing up mid-February, and they're looking for potential nesting places. And at the end of February, there's usually a spell of warm and mild days, which we've just had before we have a cold rush at the beginning of March. That's the common pattern we have in the weather. So this law is not only to encourage the birds, and now there we go. There's some decent hedging, and that's a lovely thing. During the fine weather, people do this. Get set up with the hedging. You might well be familiar with doing that work. You do that and it lasts for years, and it grows into an amazing sanctuary for wildlife of all forms. So that's what should have been going on end of January, and when there was nice weather, early February. And this not only to encourage the birds, but to hedges not only to encourage the birds to mate up, but also farmers and hedge cutters to get out there earlier. And there were around 40 prosecutions last year within the Republic of Ireland of people that were hedge cutting out of the winter cutting season. So at last there's a little bit of seriousness on this, but it can also be awkward for us in rural areas to actually report illegal hedge cutting when it go on, because of the local conflict that this can bring up. If you arouse, it's probably like this wherever you are, if you're in a rural situation, if you arouse local rural conflict, it can take generations before it settles down. And there's this sort of lingering, this is how it's always been, this is how we've always done it, and mind your own business if we try to talk to anybody that's hedge cutting out of season. Now, since this tightening up of hedge cutting laws, there was a tightening up, new laws, strengthening laws, 2019. And but of course, this regard, that was just done by those folks in Dublin who know nothing about country life. But there's been a slow recruitment of biodiversity officers. There's one for each county. I think there's still 4 counties that haven't recruited their biodiversity officers yet. I know one's Wexford. But it seems the best reporting process we got, which endures the least personal conflict, is to actually, when we see hedges being cut ruthlessly, and I wish I had the address up now, it's Nature Conservation at NPWS. I'll put links at the end of the show because I haven't had time to put links up before the show. So I'll put those up. If you go to Nature Conservation at npws.gov.ie, have some photos of what's being done illegally, and they'll actually get a biodiversity person on the job. But there's still a loophole of excuse. Most of the hedge cutting we see along the roads, it's actually along the roads, not actually in the field, this sort of thing. That's a common sight. Now, there's a bit of a loophole going there because there's actually an appendix clause in the laws that says that roadside hedge cutting like that, it can actually be done any time of the year if it's declared to be necessary for safety reasons, for road safety reasons, of course. And the old, that's the health and safety neat and tidy obsession coming into play. And I've also heard the excuse that birds don't need those roadside hedges to nest, as there are plenty of other hedges and trees away from the road, like in this beautiful countryside there, and they can go away and nest in that. That's a common excuse I tend to hear. Now, it's not just the birds, though. Hedges are not just for the birds, really. They're a very important corridor for an incredible amount of wildlife. And on top of the hedges as well is where we like to forage. Beautiful places like this, when they're in bloom. These are amazing foraging places, and I'll talk about that a bit later. They're an oasis for pollinating plants and sanctuary for pollinating wild bees and insects, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. And without any of that, if there aren't if we don't have this sort of thing around, there's no pollinating, well, there's not going to be any food from our farms and gardens. Anyway, let's move on with this. Now, you folks listening to this, you're probably all very well up on this, and that's why you're watching a show like this and me rattle on like this. So I don't need to add any more to that, I think. But there's two items in the 2019 laws that I actually do love. And one is that hedges can't be trimmed away more than once every 3 years. Whether that's practiced, I don't know. Whether you can prove that, I don't know. But at least that's there. That there is at least 2 years after trimming before but the other one, and I think you'll like this because you get this in the folklore, is that whitethorn, being a lone hawthorn or blackthorn, must be left. Let's see if I got the picture of that. No, I don't have. Damn, I didn't put the picture of that up. Does that show it? Let's see if that picture is what we got. No, I haven't got the picture up. But you've seen these lone trees, and you call them the fairy trees. And they have to actually be left to grow. A tree, a hawthorn or a blackthorn, a whitethorn, hawthorn, must be left to grow within 300 meters, which is about 980 feet away from the hedge. I had some lovely fairy tree pictures, but they've disappeared. Anyway, that law is something the fairies would love anyway, isn't it? Anyway, I've got the, I think that photo there showed that ruling. So that'll give you, this will give you an idea. There you go. There's the lone tree there. That's about the lone rule. Now, thinking of the stress and aggro that may erupt from stirring up if we report hedge cutters out seizing and bringing this into some kind of enforcement, the one thing I think about, could the alternative be to promote and encourage folklore to do the job of getting into people's consciousness and doing the enforcement for us, and then there's no need for any conflict because the folklore is spoken. So one of the things to consider is there a goddess of the hedges, she of the hedges? And I'm thinking this as at the moment I'm completing my own divination series on Substack. Let's show this one. That's it. Say no to flush. Look at that. Those are Irish agencies, part of the government, and they're objecting to the slash and burn. But there is this linking. Somehow these don't link up with the slash and burners sometimes. But there are bodies that are fighting for the hedgerows and for the wildlife. Anyway, there we are. There's my. That I have in my Bathing in the Phase Breath in the Omer's Tale of the Trees book. That's a lovely artistic version of Fiona's Wheel there. And I'm just completing my own divination series that's on Substack. And I'm about to post and yet another series, the follow-up series, is going to be a series on the She before I drift into woodland folklore topics. And it's hard to talk about she without chatting about goddesses anyway. But considering that most goddesses are described as being separate, separate to anything that's made by human creation, maybe what a lot of people think of in relation to this could be Breeder or Bridget. She fits very well from what we hear and share about that. But I think this is a perfect moment to mention a plug for the wonderful woman, a wonderful team that's actually going to be stepping into this studio as their own internet is a bit slow at the moment, and mine is revived after the scratchy start at the beginning. That's why I got nervous. Mine is pretty okay at the moment. I'm talking about the Ditch Witch Tara Tine and her wizard studio tech partner David Bellow. Let's see if I got it. Let's see a picture there. There she is. There we go, Tara Tine there. She's shortly presenting a Herb Magic in Ireland course. And this is still available for last minute, and it's bookable through the Irish Pagan School. There's the address there. If you go to irishpaganschool.com, get booking in if you'd like to be on that. She's going to be on later this evening, following up quite a bit after me. And so get your application in by 8:30 p.m. Irish time. She's going to be ready to go at 9 p.m. Irish time, live start. That's because there's a few people from other parts of the world going to be joining in. And it's not just going to be a live show, but a lot of after-show follow-up with content too. And well, the costing is pretty fair for what it is, really. There you go. 30 euros for if you're in Europe, and $35, it looks like, if you're calling in from the USA. But 40 euros, you still get the recording, you get generous content resources. I'm sure Tara's going to do a bit of one-on-one. So all great value in advance or later. But if you don't think it's worth the money, then there's always a 30-day money-back guarantee. But I personally can't see how anybody buying this would think of that after the experience of what they will receive. So booking through the Irish Pagan School or hosting the course. And I'm just letting Tara and Dave borrow the internet and lights here. It's the Irish Pagan School that's really hosting this. Anyway, back to the idea of the goddess of conscience brooding folklore, helping us to make decisions about hedges and be better curators of them. And suddenly, there's a lot of you here, and I haven't broken to actually say hello to you. So let's see who's here, because when I did say hello, nobody had arrived. Or maybe because the internet would show, it didn't show me you'd arrived. So good morning, Kate. Good morning from rural Iowa. And Claire Roach is here. Hello, John. Love the photo and the glorious yellowness. Very good. Thank you very much. And let's see. Perfect reception in Dublin. That's great. When the internet it's going down a little bit now, so I hope it's okay. I have a little bars. It shows the bars when I got a problem. I'm down to one bar, so I hope I'm not going sort of sound. Anyway, hello, Wayne. Hello, John, and everyone from Birmingham, USA. Gary's on board here. Hi, John and all. I'm glad you joined him, because Gary gets really active at the weekends and in the week as well. So where are you in the middle of at the moment, Gary? It must be somewhere quite amazing. It always is. You're familiar with Gary from the Holy Wells of Ireland, anyway. And Susan Samuel is on board here. Hello, John from Burton, Cheshire. And where we go? We got Breezy, I think, here. Yes, here we go. Over the half door, Breezy Kelly. Good afternoon, a young fella from the hills. Lovely to have you on board as well, Breezy. And if you look up with Over the Half Door, Breezy has still got the fund going, GoFundMe, still trying to get the wonderful thatched cottage rebuilt back into action. Because if you're familiar with Breezy Kelly, an amazing host, Baked Bread for Peace, and just a wonderful host. There's just a lot going on. It's the whole cottage and hospitality experience. So look up that. Let's bring that up again. Over the Half Door. Look that up on Facebook, Google, etc. Fantastic. Anyway, let's get back to what I was chatting about using the folklore to arouse the conscience as a form of us all being better curators of the hedges. And one of the reasons, as I pointed out, I think foraging is an important practice for preserving hedging, because some people lovingly, one of the things they do, I haven't got any pictures of them, but they put pollination boxes. They put bee boxes into the hedges, which looks absolutely wonderful. The bee houses, there's another name that people have for them. They look wonderful, but unfortunately, they're actually a con. I hate to say that. They rarely work, especially for bumblebees. What there is potential, if you get one of these garden centre bee boxes, if you actually, fill it with straw like is what recommended, but put some dry moss, collect up some sheep wool bits that gather on barbed wire, for instance, and on rough, on hawthorns even, in the hedges, you get some of the sheep's wool. So mix that up with the dry moss, put them in the box, bury them, and just below the surface, you might find the bees might find that, because notice if you watch bumblebees, they often are circling around, either at the base of a hedge, or if there's some tall clumps of grass, reeds, for instance, You find them flying around, and what they're really doing, the likelihood is they're scouting for a hollow entry that they can go into, like rushes. Sometimes there's a hollow entry when it gets dry below rushes, but certainly below the hawthorns as well. They're looking for a way of going down underground and finding themselves a nesting spot. So I've got some pictures, I think, of bees doing that. There we go. Well, let's try and get on with that one. There we go. That's a typical hole that's formed by them. And there's a bee coming out of the hole. Hey, come on, lads. We got this going now. And there they go. They're all coming. They're all going to go down the hole there. They've got their, they're going to build their honey down in there. And now they're doing a photo shoot, but that's not from the ground. That's actually from a hole in the wood. So there's your bumblebees. And this is what hedges encourage. If we keep the hedgerows going, that's one of the things that we can beautifully get. Yeah, it is important, especially as we're coming into March now. And some of the things that we can forage for in the hedgerows at the moment is pretty useful. There's birch sap. We can start tapping the birches. The burdocks are coming out, they're coming up, and the stalks from the burdock are pretty good. One of the things we used to eat, I haven't been eating them much lately, I ought to get them again. The children used to love them, is the cleavers and chickweed as well. They can be nice and raw. They're not too, what can I say? They're not so tough. They're not like straw at the moment. They're pretty, they're like cooked asparagus, very, just lightly steam them or eat them raw, very tender. And there's garlic mustard around. There's horseradish. If you're near water, you can dig up the horseradish at the moment. Mugwort leaves, that's definitely one. A mixture of mugwort leaves, primrose leaves, the first young nettle leaves, of course, violet leaves, yarrow leaves, a wonderful digestion aid. And of course, what's very popular is the wild garlic ramson leaves. And that's just to mention a few things that you can forage amongst the hedgerows at the moment. But if you find any of those leaves I mentioned too bitter, you can always make up some pesto. And the pesto can be very nice if you experiment with it. And you don't need to limit yourself to the traditional pine nuts. Any nuts that you've got, if you've got mortise and pestle, just mash them up. Or seeds, any sort of seeds that you get, ground them up in the mortise and pestle, sunflower seeds, etc. Add your favorite extra virgin oil, put in some garlic, crushed garlic in that, a tang of cider vinegar or lime and lemon, but put that in. And maybe if you find it still a little bit bitter, a half teaspoon of honey. That does wonders. And but some people love the bitter, so leave it as it is if your person enjoys the bitter flavors. But anyway, don't let anybody take the hedgerows away from that if you can. Have I missed any of your comments here? I think I've got all of your chat. We got one or two more here. The Sheila here. Sheila, hi there, Sheila. Up there she is. Sheila C. Elkins. Berries, love the show. Blessed day there. Thank you very much. And Adrian Foley is here. Do you know what? I'm not getting them. Sorry if I'm a bit late saying hello. For some reason, there's a bit of a issue. I'm not actually getting notices up that you're there making the comments. But anyway, I think I've said hello to who's ever here. I think I better get on with my next topic, because within my Omer's Tale of the Tree set, there are song poems in the set there. And one of them is Saille The Willow. And I think let's show you. This is the picture from Saille The Willow, if I've got it. Oh, this is something else. Yeah, I'll throw this. The one thing in the hedgerows, people think that the dandelions is where the bees go to first. But actually, the willows, the willow pollen that's out now, the catkins, they're out. And that's where the bees first head to. And this is something right now why we don't need the slash and burn going on, because the bees are out and about. At the end of February, the willows are starting to come out with their catkins and with all that pollen there. And this a few beautiful photos here. There you go, another bee on the pollen. And this one's lovely because what we got here, that's alder. That's another one. Alder makes fantastic hedging, especially in a damp area. It drains. It can drain the field. It does fantastic work in draining a field, not just where they're planting, but it can pull a muddy area out of a field wonderfully. And there you go. There's a buzzleys there, going for both the male and the female catkins. So this is the sort of thing the need to preserve, and that's why I think the law should include no cutting back on the in February. Stop it in January. That's my opinion anyway of that. So yeah, it's lovely to actually show you that as well. Right now, Sally, I was saying Saille The Willows. Show me. Do I have a logo? No, I thought I had my Saille The Willow logo up, but I didn't bring it up. Oh, there's a lot of pictures I never got up today. Sorry about that. Anyway, Saille The Willows. I'll give you a little bit of how it goes. It's a song poem I got in Bathing in the Fae's Breath, and the second half of it is Orm's Tale of the Trees. So this is a little bit of this poem. Saille The Willows, the conduit between the moon and water and percussion of the tides of life. Sallies tease childhood fantasies and enchant our waking dreams as we pass by. Sallies speak to us. It's why harp makers make sound boxes from them. And sallies, we weave sallies to weave in our wishes and prayers, to be released at the ebbs of the meeting worlds. We wear sallies to attract friendship and love that graft us into an instinct of honor. So sallies, please breathe on us. It was here that your spirit guided us, to hear where our names are blessed upon us, to hear where the water you share baptizes us, to hear where you charm us into accepting who we are and who we will become. Now, Saille The Willow one, well, that's a nice section of the poem anyway, but Saille The Willow ones used to be given to others as gifts of friendship during the spring from now, really, up until May Day. And at this time, willow blossoms, as I showed you with the bees there, first food of bees, well before the dandelions are. And broomsticks start getting made from them. And I think I've got broomstick. There you go. There's some willow broomsticks there. Not made with broom, but made with willow, but they're still called brooms. And gardeners, wicker, you know, you'd be familiar with Joe Gardner's wicker, cult name, said to be actually inspired by willow and wicker work that's done with willow. Now, willow, this is why I got the scenery behind me, as well as being a symbol of the moon and water. Like I was saying in that poem, there's the conduit between the moon and water relate that to baptism. And willow itself is great for getting rid of headaches and stress. But willow can be a tree of sadness. And this is one you'd be familiar with. The weeping willow. A tree of grieving is one of the things it said. Willow for mourning. And but it's also good for using as a send-off of loved ones into the next life. Because, which countries? The Greeks. The Greeks always believed in surrounding their dead with willow branches during burial to ensure a safe ride into their afterlife. And the knock on wood, everybody's heard about knock on wood. And it's said to be very effective when you actually knock on willow and with your prayers and wishes for good luck. And so, talking about that, I believe that willow is actually the perfect material because of its association with passing us on, and perfect material for a casket or a coffin, whichever country you're in, whatever you call that. Now, I'm everything's freezing on me, I'm afraid. There we go. Yeah, I'm getting a similar freeze. Hang on, I might be getting through to you. Sorry, my computer is completely freezing up on me. I might have to pause for a second to get things going. No, the comments are coming up now. Okay, everything is... Boy, this little internet has gone sluggish. I hope it'd be okay for Tara later. I've had any bother for a while. Anyway, the one thing I love about the willow is that your body is in the casket, and the water, when it leaves your body, it rejoins all the other water again, while our bodies itself go with the wicker and with the willow, goes back to the soil, and there's even food for when our wicker casket, our coffin, resprouts again. So we could end up with a bunch of trees above where we were buried, that the wicker maker could come along and perhaps make more coffins and baskets and so forth. Anyway, there's one, so I'm doing a run around to show you. We've had this weaver from County Mayo with us a few times, and here we go, Kate Burrows there, and she gets a lot of help from her husband there, Alan, and look what they're making there. They've just started making beautiful woven willow coffins, and there you go, 2 angles of that. This is their prototype, and they're so pleased they've done this. So they're hoping to go very commercial with this, and they've huge plans for this. They've planted hundreds of new willow trees on their land, and they're going to try and obtain permission from other land around them, I think. And as Kate loves to teach, she loves to teach willow making. I wouldn't be surprised if she offers a follow-up apprenticeship in casket making as a course. That'd be quite something there for making your own funeral wicker coffins. And there's Alan. He makes the bars, you know, they support bars at the top. That's what he's measuring up for and working on there. So it wouldn't surprise me in the future if she will do the basket making courses, so you make your own basket and go away. But I'm sure for those who've done that, there'll be opportunity for a follow-up to become apprentices to make something like this. She hasn't said this, but this is me doing a little bit of divination on this about where this is going to go. I think it's pretty obvious. And one thing is that they do live near a loch, so we do have the situation of being the conduit between the moon and water with the work that they're doing. So yeah, that's a bit of that. And there's Breezy giving a thank you here. Words of encouragement. Our world is blessed having the likes of to remind us and keep us connected and informed about the magic of nature. Wild garlic pesto with a feed of boiled spuds is a feast for a queen and indeed a king. And Adrian, he loves Kate's and Alan's crafting there. It is absolutely amazing, isn't it? It's quite incredible. Anyway, the third topic, how are we doing? I've gone past the half hour, which I expected. I knew there were going to be more than 10 minutes per item. But anyway, Fish Friday. Let's talk about Fish Friday. It's pretty topical. And there was actually a Fish Friday before there was Jesus. I'm going to change my background here. Let's see if I got something. I know that's a lovely background. They're beautiful. Let's see. Do I have the bees? Shall I keep the bees on? I think I might keep. No, I'm gonna have the bees. I think I'm gonna stick with the bees. That'd be lovely, wouldn't it? There we go. There we go. I hope my yellow. There we go. I'm amongst the bees. I was hoping if there'd be a conflict with the yellow here. Anyway, Fish Friday before there was Jesus. Now we've had our Pancake Tuesday indulgence. That was last Tuesday, wasn't it? And then on the Wednesday, some people had their foreheads ashed. And that ashing is a remnant from a more dedicated all year round fish fasting day. Because once upon a time, it was every week, it was Wednesday and Friday was fish day. And let's see, what's this one I've got here? Yeah, there we go. And this is what we do on Friday, isn't it? We go off and get some fish and chips, maybe. But it's now part of our fasting up until Easter, or maybe all year round. We go for fish on Fridays. And a lot of what I'm going to speak of for a few minutes, you may be well familiar with, but maybe something I say here will connect up some bits that you weren't sure how they came together. So let's see how we go. Because through my father's family, we never had any Christian church connections. My mother did. She was Catholic family, and they were horrified when she got married to my father. Anyway, my first stepmother, because my mother passed away when I was 4. She was a devout Methodist, very different. So that was me off to Sunday school, as she ordered, but I actually loved it. I never got hooked into the doctrine of the religion or the Methodist stuff or even the Christian stuff or all. Even going to cathedrals, I wasn't really that impressed. I was still very much loved being amongst the trees, amongst the water, and so forth. I used to find going off to cathedrals and big churches very boring. But I really love the biblical stories. And this is what really started my quest and wonder for storytelling. And the Sunday school teachers, they're also very lovely and engaging, which I couldn't say about my state school teachers at primary school. They were horrific. I'm not going into any more. But my favorite story that came out of these Sunday school teachers was the resurrection. And my second favorite story was the feeding of the people with the 5 loaves and 2 fishes. Something like this. Anyway, I carried ideas of what the 2 fishes and 5 loaves were actually symbolic of, because even as a child, what's the symbol meaning behind this? Yeah, I never trusted any words, even as a child. So I was always seeking out the prompt symbols in stories. 2 fishes, though, I thought that one was easy. I thought that one was very easy. I'd already noticed that Jesus did a lot with fishermen, fishes, and water, and he was also quite into washing feet. Now, add to that the bishop's mitre heads. The bishop's heads. Have I got the bishop's heads? Look at that. When I saw that, and I still think of it, I think that I start writing an alternative script for Jaws. And there, of course, we're talking about Pisces here. And going back, one of the fish, it's 2 fish in Pisces. And some of the ancient folklorists says that those fish are actually sharks. So I'm not surprised I'd start thinking about writing a script for Jaws there. Anyway, it wasn't until astrology school when I actually grasped the idea about what the 5 loaves might be symbolic of. And to me, the 5 loaves and 2 fishes, it's all symbolic about the vernal equinox, which is spring equinox, which is coming up next month. And the vernal equinox is the point when the moon crosses the equator. And that's also the 0 point of the sun in Aries. Now, our ages of the great year, about 26,300 years, I think it is. I'm not going to go into the maths of why it's 26,300. I'll do that another session. But they actually, they're not in sequence. They actually go backwards. So let's give you some examples because let's go to the age of Taurus, for instance. Let's think about the age of Taurus. Is this an age of Taurus picture? There we go. Time of stability, structure, and growth. That would have been about 5,000 BC. A lot of the time that we're thinking about when Newgrange, Loughcrew, Carrowkeel built here, and there was structures all over. There were big cities in the Middle East and so forth. There were massive ancient civilizations, and they had bull symbols, this sort of thing. And that's from that age, I gather. And we had, then from there, we had the age of Aquarius. And there was advancements there. There it says a time of initiative and prosperity. The Iron Age came in at that time, but there was also an advance in weapons and combat, along with the exploring, a lot of navigation, pioneering. And then we entered into the age of Pisces, symbolized there by the 2 fish. And on some symbols, the fish is just swimming in opposite directions, such as in there. There's the Pisces sign that seems to resemble that, as if it is 2 fishes going in opposite directions as well. And on other symbols, such as this, a fish is going horizontal and another one is going vertical. And notice how they're tied together. I'm not going to go into that this time of why they're tied together. That's another story in itself. But in most symbols, fish are tied together. But I could spend an hour telling you why they're tied together. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to move on. But to me, what the start of the Piscean age symbolized was the start of what has become quite a patriarchal age, which I find very strange for Pisces because astrologically it's thought of as being a more feminine internal symbol. But each age, as you gather, it's a bit over 2,000 years long. There's no fixed date because obviously there wasn't much in the way of dates over 2,000 years ago anyway. Some calendars were done observations from the skies, but everything is a transition. One age is a transition into the other, and how long that transition is, well, that's total guesswork. And it's not something I ponder over too much. Anyway, back to the two fishes. When I got to the astrology school, I was taught that the two fishes were symbolic of the sun and moon. And I think I will actually, just for the hell of it, change the sun and moon in my background here, just to emphasize that point. I think I got a sun and moon. There we go. Let's stick with sun and moon for the rest of this session. Yeah, sun and moon, the two fishes, the lights of our way. We always regard those as lights, and we often think of the moon, there we go, over that side as feminine, the sun as more sort of masculine. And let's have the whole picture there. There you go. Let's get rid of me. And then I'm back in front of the sun and moves there. But the five loaves representing the other visible planets, the visible planets, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, 5 visible planets, plus the sun and the moon, we got the 7. And it's believed that at the birth of Jesus, all of these were aligned together, hence the big star. And we had part of that on Wednesday, wasn't it, when we had this appear. That not a very good photo. I took that with a mobile phone, with not even with a stand, a wobbly arm. And the moon in the middle was actually a lovely crescent. But there we go. We had Jupiter at the top, wasn't it? And Venus to the right. And of course, Venus was the first to disappear below the horizon as the moon goes. Jupiter was the last to go. But at the time of Jesus, one thing that was, we'll get rid of that. Fish patty was very popular. I'm looking for a fish patty. I think it's another, it's another picture that didn't come up. Anyway, at the time of Jesus, fish patty was very popular. So I can imagine that was quickly made, and it was put onto the 5 loaves that was distributed to the 5,000 people. But there were complications like this. So anyway, despite those complications, the loaves were broken up and shared into 12 baskets. And of course, there's 12 solar signs of the zodiac. And here we have baskets that are probably made of willow, of course, or hazel. And they're both conduit materials between the moon and water. So, but with 12 baskets of the solar sun being the symbol of the masculine, and if made dominant of patriarchy, anyway, I'll leave the loaves and fishes symbolism and stories for another time. And let's get back to the fish on Fridays. Now, Pisces and fish, they always seem to take us into symbolic definitions related to wisdom and clarity. And through this, the Christian Lent, in a roundabout way, speaks of fasting. When we do fast during Lent, it takes us up closer to God. Now, there's a set of conspiracy theorists out there, and far older than the ones that we conjured up through COVID, and much older than those that are spouted out by Dale Gribble of King of the Hill. And they claim that Fish Friday was invented by the Catholic Church in a way to increase the fish trade, so that the Catholic Church would increase their coffers, increase their finances, because they had a share with the fishermen with all this extra profit from bringing about Fish Friday. That's the conspiracy theorists of old used to claim. But true enough, when the Catholic Church encouraged its followers to eat fish on Fridays and on Wednesdays too, the fishing trade in the Christian areas, they just boomed. But anyway, why fish? What's this big thing about eating fish? And herring was popular first, though unless you do things with it. I love herring when it's actually treated, but it can be quite a bland fish if you don't know what to do with it. So of course, over time, cod, which has got flavor, became more popular. But it's all about getting This idea of eating fish is regarded as being a way of getting closer to God or close to your goddess, closer to your spirit. And now in Christian speak, Jesus is a warm-blooded person, it's a human being. The human being is a warm-blooded human mammal. And Jesus died on the cross as a sacrifice for our sins. Now, all warm-blooded land mammals caught or reared for food, they're also regarded or were regarded as creatures of sacrifice. We go into the supermarket and get it all well butchered now, but they were regarded at the time, killing them was a sacrifice in order to feed us. And that needed, with animals, the land mammals, the butchering and the rearing of animals, and even the hunting, it all needed management and care. So we didn't wipe out a balance on Earth. But for some reason, the Christians were taught that God created fish on Thursday and blessed them to multiply then. And then God created humans and warm-blooded animals on Friday and asked them to multiply. And then on Saturday, he blessed the whole world because it was the seventh day and it was all completed. But for Jewish people and others, their Saturday was and is the Sabbath. But for Christians, they moved it a day forward. They moved it to Sunday. And so Fish Thursday became moved to Friday. And therefore, the indulgence of flesh happens on Saturdays in the Christian world. So out of all this was the belief that the days of fish fasting, as it was called or is called, the days of not eating meat, that's what brings us closer to God, closer to the divine, and indeed closer to water, because through folklore guidance, that I believe water is the carrier of all life. Even entering into the age of Pisces was moving from an age of Aries, and we had, from the age, Aries is the ram and the lamb, if I can get me pictures up for this, the slaughtering of the lamb or ram of God, going from the age of Aries and moving to that, to just going out and doing a bit of fishing instead. But even within the birth of Jesus stories, the shepherds, the lamb, the ram people, they were all sent away when they tried to see the baby Jesus in the story. How dare they call Jesus the Lord of the Lamb? Anyway, the wise men came along, the men of wisdom of the skies, and wisdom of the water as well. So they were very welcome. And folklore tales around the world tell us that the earth was once all water anyway. There were, once upon a time, there was no land. And there's some beautiful stories of how the kayak built the land, but again, for another time. So there was land above the surface. About a third of the sea became land. I'm going to be writing a bit about this on my next set of Substack articles where I'll go into the she goddess and water folklore again. But I'll paddle through this idea of fish fast days to bring us into connection with water, God, the goddess, and the spirit of life. Now, water, as we know, is the medium of wombs, and I gather the sea has the word mare, and that has a relationship to feminine names Moya, Mary, Murray, and Mare, of course. Now, before there was Christianity, the Jewish people, they still had fish days. As this fella, jolly fella, he's a Jewish person ready to prepare sacred fish for people. And the Jewish people, they followed the creation belief of God blessing fish on Thursday and blessing man and mammals on Friday. And then Saturday, the Sabbath, was the seventh day and completion of the building of the earth. Now, the Hebrew Sabbath or Shabbat is symbolic of the seventh day and all things related to seven. An ancient Hebrew word, and I find this fascinating, there's an ancient Hebrew word for fish that's actually dag, D-A-G. And that also means seven as well. So same word in ancient Hebrew meant both, fish and seven. Now, there are ancient Jewish-based beliefs that all humans and earth mammals, when we die, when we pass on, we are reincarnated as fish in the water. And to me, that's a wonderfully symbolic storyline for what I believe in us being water, which is life of self. We're more water than we are body. And then when we die, that water passes on. And that water is what sustains the fish. And I mentioned about that through Kate's weaving of the coffins, the advantage of that. Now, another valuable Jewish thought is that land mammals that we hunt and rear to eat and slaughter them. And the slaughter is always a ritual of sacrifice, as I mentioned. But with fish, it's not regarded, hasn't been through history, they're not regarded as being sacrificed. They die because we lift them up and they don't get any more oxygen. So that's not regarded, hasn't been regarded as a sacrifice. But because we purposely kill the land animals, that's regarded as slaughter. Why, I don't know. Anyway, ancient ritual, not only with ancient Jews, was to elevate land meat for food through gratitude and connection. So that before slaughtering, before the sacrifice, that's why you got all these rituals of thanking for service of the animals, for the humans, for the land, and to actually give a blessing to the animal's departing spirit before it was eaten. But the blood of meat was regarded as being the actual problem here, and the blood being the actual block between us and our connection to God, a connection to earth spirit. So before being eaten, the slaughtered animals had their blood drained with, guess what? Sea salt from the sea, salt extracted from the Holy See. And that blood was used to feed the trees that was left, that was taken out, the animals. It was taken away. It was used as food for the trees so that the water purified the blood as it raised through the trees, through the sap, and this is what forms fruit. That's all part of the belief of that. So fish was regarded as already being elevated. So an elevated food, the moment it's lifted up from the water. And that's because the medium of water is regarded as being much more elevated and closer to God than anywhere on land is. So that alone, to me, is a hint on the reverence of holy wells, I think. And one of the reasons, without knowing it, I think that's one of the reasons our conscience draws us to the holy wells. And I do believe, and there's a lot of legends, I'll talk another time, legends of the wisdom from fish in the wells. That's a good luck thing if you see a fish flapping about in a holy well, of course. Now, I do believe this approach to fish and water was not exclusive to Jewish people, but was developed and handed along by various tribes as they were tuned into the wisdom of nutrition of water. Now, one more bit of trivia is that the earliest Christians, they were persecuted by the Romans, of course. So in order for Christians to come together, to actually even just speak to each other and meet up secretly, the more ancient forms of the mass rocks, I suppose, one symbol they carried to recognize each other was this fish symbol. There we go. That was it. Some meeting places would have that symbol carved, and people would carry some sort of badge that had that symbol. I forget what the Greek name of that is. You might be able to put that in. But the earliest medieval monks, they in Ireland, at least from the 4th century onwards, they seemed to bring the tradition of the feast fast. And when they brought it, it was the old style of Wednesdays and Fridays each week. And that whittled down to, do I have another picture? Yeah, let's show you this one. There we go. That's Friday is when you get the best fish and chips in town. If you go to the Fishers on Friday, Chippers on Friday, you always get the freshest fish, best fish and chips of the week, definitely. And even vegan like years when my thirst, I was enjoying the fish and chip shop on Fridays, and it was a long line for that once a week treat. Anyway, let's see what you're saying here. There we've got Robin here, Robin Shepard. I always thought that the Pisces represented in this pastime period was wrongly named. As I was mentioning, yeah, Pisces is a feminine name. That's why I was saying I was surprised, because in astrology, it is a feminine symbol, whereas this has been very patriarchal. That is the mystery. And I hope if you've joined what I've said before, I hope you'll be able to pick up the threads on that, where I tried to do the connecting of that, why it became patriarchal. That in itself would take a whole article, and I might go into that sometime. But that is the main point of it, and it is one of those wonders and the puzzle. But things being organized. And again, I think it's to do with the sun-moon relationship, because the religions were kind of trying to bring the sun, the warming sun, the masculine sun, down to earth, that warms up the earth. And I think somehow that just took over. It just took over. And there's, there we go. Plenty of food for thought today, John. Yes, I suppose I have gone quite a bit there, Breezy. So, yeah, that's it. At least you can watch it again, and eventually they'll come into articles. It might be next year before I get articles out on this particular subject, on these subjects. Anyway, on the Substack, give you an update. I've got one more Om definition chapter to post, and then I start the series on the she. I'm not sure how long it's going to go. I want to try and get that all done by the end of this month anyway, because through March I want to concentrate on woodlands and on trees. But those of you who subscribe in through Patreon, as I say, you'll get notice of each posting. I've actually got you all onto Substack as well now, the 2-for-1 deal. So you'll get notices about these articles when they come up. Anyway, I've gone on twice as long as I expected. These Nature Folklore Live, Nature Folklore video and articles library, the Holy Wells Revival, which I'll definitely be getting back into very, very shortly, and the Nature Sanctuary support. It's all brought to you by the support of you wonderful, kind subscribers. And that's the address there for the Substack, where there's also collecting up the video and article library for the members. And there's 2 tiers, as I said, the free and the paid one. And the Patreon people are going to get more videos, and they get the 2-for-1, so they can go to Substack and catch up there. Right. What else have I got to say? Yeah. Thank you, paid subscribers. Long way towards, well, it's essential to keep this show going, because I have monthly subscriptions and things break down that I have to replace. So thank you for helping out with that. Through the Substack, the subscribing is through Stripe. If you prefer Patreon, then message me and I'll get you onto Patreon. They take PayPal. So coming up on next Wednesday, Nature Echoes, I'm not sure, but as I'm moving into tree articles, I could be talking about trees and woods. But it's all echoing news that's going on at this moment. And there's any other messages that I missed from you? No, wonderful. Okay. I've enjoyed being with you through this late afternoon, early evening to share Nature Echoes, echoing 3 different subjects there. And if you're watching this as a replay, please keep posting comments and questions. I do check and answer and comment from time to time to reply to what you posted. If you're on YouTube, we haven't had any YouTube people come through, mainly because I didn't get time to promote through the people who watch YouTube, but I'll try next week. But anyway, from YouTube, if you click the bell icon, you'll be reminded of the next Nature Echoes. Anyway, this is enjoy a safe week full of all the wonder, inspirations, enchantments that all come when you're in the presence of water, woods, and mysteries of nature. So until next Sunday, I think that's all I've got. Thank you so much. Play well, and hopefully, I was a bit in advance there. I'm still here until next Sunday. Play well, and we'll see you next Sunday, same time. Thank you very much.